it is preposterous to say, for example, we should not be concerned about Donald Trump opening up the madhouse and letting out his violent terrorist friends, letting them loose onto our communities and streets. What kind of idiotic thought process is that? That shows a completely unserious mind that will not be able to meet the moment with respect to Trump. You don't even understand why this is happening, why it matters that he's doing this. It is an omen for what is to come. And people are right to be angry and that lack of perspective. You guys ever watch Ratatouille? I would like a large glass of perspective. Hey folks, please like, comment, and subscribe. And if you want to read what's going on from a pro-republic, anti-corruption, and anti-oligarch perspective, subscribe to the Weekly Patriot. The link is in the description. So folks, we're going to do my little monologue section. It's called Pisco's Hour, but it's probably not going to last a full hour. But there's some important things that I want to discuss with you. First and foremost, I want to discuss this kind of centrism arc that a lot of people are having. Here, I'm referencing people like Chris Cuomo, referencing people like Jon Stewart, referencing people like this guy Ike or whatever this guy is from Tangle News that I had a little bit of a beef with on Twitter. This need to do this both sidism bullshit game. We're going to start with, or to downplay, the true nature of the enemy that is MAGA, the true nature of the threat that is Trump. And so we're going to get into that, and I'm going to talk first about Jon Stewart. I saw him on his show kind of like downplaying Trump's fascistic nature and doing this kind of thing of, oh, don't freak out too quickly about things that you shouldn't freak out about where it's totally normal. For example, the birthright citizenship. Yeah, that's fascistic, but oh, I guess it's no big deal because it, there's an order right now stopping it. Another example. Oh no, they fired the IGs. Oh wait, but he has the power to do that. It was just a notice provision. Oh, he pardoned J6ers, but the president has the power to pardon people. So why are you freaking out? That shows a completely unserious mind that will not be able to meet the moment with respect to Trump. Let me be 1,000,000,000% clear. In order to abuse a power, you need to have a power. To use a power that you don't have, you could call that an ultra virus act. That's the kind of Latin legal term for it. You could say it's a, usurpation to the extent that it's not legal. But abuse of power is assuming that there's a power there. So it is preposterous to say, for example, we should not be concerned about Donald Trump opening up the madhouse and letting out his violent terrorist friends, his seditious conspiracist friends, letting them loose onto our communities and streets to attack and pillage our country. Oh yeah, we shouldn't be upset about that. We shouldn't be upset about the equivalent of the Freikorps, the equivalent of these sort of extremist militias being emboldened by this pardon because Trump technically has the authority. No doubt the American people bear some responsibility for rendering unto our country this wonderful situation. If you read my first article, I go into depth about the different actors and levels of blame that I might impose on a lot of actors, including the people of the United States. But to act as though that pardon, we shouldn't freak out about it? Really? You shouldn't freak out about criminal terrorists being unleashed on our country? I don't know. Like, imagine Trump just pardoned every single federal criminal. I guess we can't be mad about that. Or what if he starts like literally doing the SEAL Team 6 memes and starts pardoning all the people he's using to operate this kind of assassination ring? Oh, he has the power to do it, Jon Stewart. I mean, what kind of idiotic thought process is that? So anything that's within his technical authority now, I guess we can't criticize. If it's within his technical authority, blame the people. So says Jon Stewart. That's the analysis. That's preposterous. And he's missing even the whole point of this. The whole point of why this is being done is precisely to release the deniable violent militia leaders to cause havoc and impose intimidation on the rest of the country. So it's not just a sort of past situation. It is foreboding. It's a future ill, cancer, additional tumor that is going to cause us a lot of trouble in the weeks ahead. And this kind of like both sidism, or, oh, don't forget about the pardons. No, this pardon of the Jan 6ers is the single most corrupt action taken by a president in the history of the Republic. Name a more corrupt one. Releasing the people who try to overthrow the Republic onto the country, the terrorist thugs in danger. So it's at the same time, it's undermining democracy because you're not fulfilling your obligation, ethical, legal obligation to take care that the laws be faithfully executed, and that punishment, just deserts, is meted upon the violent animals who attacked our Congress people. And that situation is also a literal threat to the public welfare. These people are committing crimes. Some of them are like literal files. I think one's already been shot. These are disgusting thugs. None of them should have been pardoned. Not one. It is a shame that the Senate resolution that didn't pass anyway, that Fetterman signed on to late, only called out those who attacked cops. No, every single one of them should have been completely out of the potential for a pardon. If anything, they were treated far too lightly. Far too lightly. Way too lightly. And so Trump does this, and Jon Stewart says, what's the big deal? Because he can do it. So if, like, I don't know, Trump launched a nuke against a foreign country because he can do it. I mean, who else has the authority to launch a nuke? Completely out there, crazy stupidity. But Stewart continues. He's like, why are you guys freaking out about the IGs? Oh, boo-hoo, 30 days. You don't understand the notice provisions. Why do we? You don't even understand why this is happening. Why it matters that he's doing this. He's trying to undo any check, either judicial or congressional, with respect to his complete capture of the executive branch. But Jon Stewart is not cerebral enough, or is not, no one's telling him what's going on, because apparently people don't know. Why are you firing the IGs and why are you violating the law? It's not just because for the shits of it, because they're all, this is the problem, right? When you guys all assume that they're just stupid, they are stupid in many respects. They are, in many respects, incompetent, but they're also more cunning than people give them credit for. So Jon Stewart's like, oh, 30 days, who cares? That's supposed to be... No, you have to think of the bigger picture, what they're trying to do. They're trying to install authoritarian government, and part of their process to do that is to make sure that Congress cannot impose any procedural limits or substantive limits on the ability of Trump to dominate and control the executive branch. And on top of that, the IGs are the watchdogs. It's not just the congressional standoff. It's what these IGs do. They're internal watchdogs. So it's a portent. You get me, guys, right? When I say a portent, it is an omen for what is to come. And people are right to be angry, and they are right to be suspicious, and they are right to be concerned. But Jon Stewart says, 30 days. And people are going to be like, well, it's a joke. It's not funny. It's not funny. 30 days, they're just laughing 30 days, or whatever. The joke is at the expense of the people who are freaking out, supposedly, who are kind of like taking this too seriously when this is just kind of a trivial thing. It's not a trivial thing. It's designed in a way to make you think it's trivial. It's deadly deadly serious. But the writers of his show, or him himself, just don't understand what's going on. And that's a crying shame. And finally, let's get to the citizenship clause of the Jon Stewart reaction, where he's like, oh, a judge stopped it, so everything's good again. No, motherfucker. First of all, it's a district court. You know, if I had to bet, I don't think the Supreme Court will uphold it. But what's the key here? They might uphold it. And this will not be the only rationale that they offer, potentially. And this will not be the only time that they try to literally erase a part of the Constitution. Is that how we're supposed to react when someone does something intends to do something horrible and they just fail? They're trying to, he's attacking on all fronts, the foundations of our country, the Constitution, the Congress, the courts, his own internal watchdogs, the executive branch itself, the states, the people, journalists, pollsters, and he doesn't get it. He doesn't get it. And that lack of perspective. You guys ever watch Ratatouille? I would like a large glass of perspective. You provide the meal. He doesn't have the perspective to see how these are all interrelated and connected. And what's the binding tissue? Authoritarianism and Project 2025. And they're following that playbook. But why then? Like, so what's motivating him? It's this need, this really despicable need to try to seem to be above politics. Oh, what's so wrong with this? Calling balls and strikes. Now, you should call balls and strikes. Lord knows I do that, sometimes to the chagrin of the people, my own audience. Here I'm thinking about Merrick Garland, where my position has not changed with respect to the January 6th case. And people get very upset about that. The Hur report, people get very upset about that. When I called Joe Biden, his decision to pardon his own son and his family members corrupt, when I said that the preemptive pardons of his family member was impeachable, people got very upset. They're like, how could you say that? So I know how to call balls and strikes. I'm always calling balls and strikes. I'm not hiding the ball that I have a preference, and my preference is for the republic to survive. And that will entail me favoring Democrats. I'm open about that. But I'm calling balls and strikes. What I hate is people who are doing that for the pretense of it. People who are doing it for the act of it, the performance. And in doing so, say the most ridiculous shit possible. Chris Cuomo. Oh yeah, efficiency. Doesn't it make sense to, without any notice, without any prior warning, in a 2-page memo, just completely shut down every single financial federal assistance and have everyone be in chaos? Why are people freaking out about this? Out of touch. Like what he's trying to be is it's not this bad, guys. But he hasn't really thought about it. So it would be one thing if you thought about it and you come to the conclusion, it's not that bad, guys. And there will be some things in the Trump administration, V2, that are like that. The freeze on federal financial assistance is not like that. But you haven't thought about it, Chris Cuomo. You just said, I guess that my intuition is it's to be run like a business. And sometimes you just need to have some kind of CEO type come in there and just put a pause everything, check the books. But the government's not like that. The government's not like a business in that sense. And you're not thinking about the inefficiency entailed by the chaos, the lack of notice, the lack of care, which is part of the aim. And so you downplay it and you're like, why are people freaking out? And then AOC comes up with a tweet and says, if you're having a bad day, just think about what, the press secretary who has to kind of manage this despicable doublespeak situation where she's getting shut down by a court. And you want to know what Chris Cuomo says? To AOC. Not to the fascistic, disgusting regime that is trying to evade judicial review by rescinding the memo but not rescinding the policy. Not to the administration that is trying to usurp Article 1 of the Constitution and steal core legislative authority from the Congress to appropriate and to spend money. What does he say to AOC? A member of the branch of government who's being attacked by Trump and who says something a little snide to the press secretary. Ooh. What does Chris Cuomo say? He says, AOC, Alex, why aren't you part of the solution? Why can't you be a bridge builder? Why can't you be part of the solution, AOC? Are you kidding me, Chris Cuomo? So these liars, these vandals of the Constitution and of the administration of the government of the state of our country, they're walking around shitting and pissing over our foundations, over our history, and over our structure of government. And the people you say need to be part of the solution are the members of Congress who are being based and calling out the administration for their abuses. And it's so phony. It's so forced. It's so thoughtless. Completely thoughtless. Chris Cuomo doesn't have an interesting thing to say in the world about what's going on here. He doesn't get it, just like Jon Stewart doesn't get it. Crucially doesn't get it. Now, Jon Stewart can be based on some stuff. That's why I thought that he would be a good candidate. Not anymore. I was wrong about that. From now on, I'm not going to just go with my gut on those. I have to really dig deep into those tendencies. I feel like every time we have this conversation, I need to start by saying I'm sorry to do the kind of blackpilling thing. I'm sorry that I have to be the bearer of bad news. I only do this because it's necessary, because you need to stay informed, because so much is happening right now. That's part of the strategy, in fact, is they want you to be distracted, confused, disoriented. And this series of steps taken by the administration, corrupt steps, authoritarian steps, incompetent steps, dangerous steps, all of them are disoriented. You don't have to feel bad for feeling a little bit out of sorts, given the nature of the enemy and what's occurring. It feels like every second there's something new dropping to take your attention and to get you in a kind of daze almost, where you have this urge to tune out. I get it. I'm a human being as well, and seeing the constant drumbeat of authoritarianism, of stupidity, and of lies, it will have that effect on you. I need you to dig deep. You guys ever do the presidential fitness test in high school? And some of you may have had trouble running that first mile when you were, I don't know, when you start doing the mile. Is it in 5th grade, 6th grade? And it might have been the most physically exerting thing you ever did at that time. Or try to come up with some substitute. Some of you guys can't do calisthenics, push-ups, that kind of thing. And I know that there's this urge to just relax and give in, not complete it, walk the last bit of the mile. I need you to resist that urge. Now is the time where individuals need to test their mettle and dig deep. And that's what we're going to do. And so me presenting this information to you, I don't want you to tune out. If it's physically, mentally stressing for you, take a break, but come back, because your country needs you. I need you. Everyone who is part of the struggle against the authoritarian regime needs to stand together. And so we need everyone. But let's get going on the stuff that's happening and what it means thematically and how it sort of combines with what we've observed so far this week and last week. We know that the Trump regime is implementing Project 2025. We know that a key aspect of that struggle to change and disfigure the republic to make it something less than a republic is an assault and consolidation of power against and within the executive branch. We recognized yesterday and a couple days ago as well that there are assaults on other branches as well, attacks on the court's ability to do judicial review, assault on Congress's authority under Article 1 to appropriate funds. So there are other governmental coups d'etats occurring, anti-republican authoritarian moves taking place. But one of the key ones is consolidation of power within the executive branch. And that is going to have its consequences. It's going to have its consequences in terms of the rule of law, because obviously the aim is to undermine the rule of law, right? Well, part of the goal of an authoritarian is to make sure there is no equal administration of justice. That's the whole point of being authoritarian, is being above the law, being not subject to individual rights, among them equal application of the law. So it is a goal. It is also an effect of the authoritarian changes being implemented by the Trump regime. But there are other side effects as well. Some of these are side effects, some of these are intentional. So let me give you some examples. When the administration wants to make sure that all government contractors, affiliates, employees are loyal Trump sycophants, are loyal serfs to the administration, it requires you to crack some eggs. It's funny I use that term because of the price of eggs, which is now at an all-time high. But truly, it means that there are going to be costs and consequences. So say, for example, you want to make sure everyone's on the level with respect to any kind of federal financing. That's obviously going to delay payments to individuals who need them or to organizations who need them. And that is what we saw, is confusion, chaos, and disruption. That is both a goal. They want to make people hurt. How can I say that they want to make people hurt, right? How can I say that? Well, that's part of the object, in the sense that in order to get the desired effect of loyalty, you need to extract some pain from the actors that you're trying to dominate. If I punch you once and say, don't do that again, ow, you need to punch first. You need to know the consequence. And so these other agencies, these employees, these contractors, these affiliates, they're going to feel the hurt. They're going to know the cost. And so that intrinsically requires there to be a moment of pain. So that's part of the design. Now, the moment of pain that occurs is a signal. That's why they have no notice either, is to make sure that it's not dulled by people preparing, right? If you gave notice and said, hey, on X date, we're going to do a freeze of da-da-da-da-da-da, that's going to dull the pain. But we don't want to dull the pain. We want to maximize the pain. So that's what's occurring, and that's how cost can be part of the design of the authoritarian regime. It can also be a byproduct of it. Now, let's discuss for a moment the airplane crashes. We don't know yet that there is a direct causal connection between some of the steps we identified yesterday of the outright attack by the Trump administration on the FAA and the broader agency attack. We don't know that there's a direct causal link between the particular crashes and the policies. We know the policies make things more risky. That's clear, right? So we should already be blaming them in the sense of for making our lives more dangerous. If you fire the head of an agency, if you disband a safety organization, if you institute a hiring freeze, which we'll talk about as well, and if you threaten, coerce people into quitting the FAA and other agencies, it's going to have a cost. We know that. And there's no such thing as a free lunch. Those of you who study economics know that. There's no such thing as a free lunch. So there's going to be a cost. And so though we cannot draw a direct causal connection between the policies right now, we need a full investigation to make sure that these irresponsible, unforgivable, imperiling policies, whether or not they had an impact, and we'll need to have that investigation, whether or not you trust this administration, which I don't, to conduct that investigation. That's a separate matter. We may not get a full impartial investigation on those details. But this is the kind of thing where the authoritarian moves can have an unintended cost. That is to say, the people who are the most loyal are not necessarily the most competent. People want to talk about DEI. The real DEI that's going on right now is Project 2025 DEI, is authoritarian DEI. Compare the resumes of Pete Hegseth and Lloyd Austin, the previous Secretary of Defense. It's not even a comparison. One is a drunk, degenerate woman beater, disgusting person who's never, ever managed an organization of the size or scope of the DoD. And the other is like an incredibly well-decorated general who's like managed shit before. And like compare them, it's not even a contest, okay? So that's the DEI price with respect to Project 2025. Incompetence at times. And that will often have, though not proven in these particular crashes, deadly consequences. Because these people that they're installing are lackeys. And some of them are truly stupid. And most of them are evil. That word is important. Evil. Corrupt. It's not just that they're bad or self-interested. They actually have bad motive. Their intent is corrupt and horrible. They want to see this country disfigured and thrown apart. So that's the consequences of the Project 2025 assault on our federal agencies. And it's not over. It's just the beginning. And that's why it's really important for you to keep track of the stuff that's going on. On the one hand, right, and it can be confusing, right? You have the general hiring freeze that applies to all these places to assure loyalty, right? You have the Schedule F, which is like the classification of different jobs to make them more easily fireable by the president himself and by direct political appointees. You have offices like the OPM being made partisan, right? The Office of Personnel Management being installed with lackeys, by some accounts, Elon Musk loyalists, members of SpaceX, that kind of shit, and cutting off access, sort of taking over, a kind of corrupt, hostile takeover. You have the Office of Budget Management issuing a freeze on federal financial assistance, which right now there's a court order that's blocking that freeze. But that's a different kind of OBM agency that is doing something corrupt within the structure of the executive departments and independent agencies. And then you have each of the individual agencies themselves. What I want to talk about first is the Friday Night Massacre, which just occurred. There was another Friday Night Massacre last week. Why are they doing them on Fridays? They're so brazen, right? They're not even hiding anything. They're firing all the inspectors general on Friday night last week because they know that's a slow news because people are going out, and so it's not going to be as picked up by the news agencies. And so they fired the inspectors general. That was the first Friday Night Massacre. Those are the internal watchdogs. They did so in complete violation of the law. They did so without procedural requirements. They did so without sufficient reason as an assault on Congress. But they also did it so that the internal actors within the executive branch are not checking on the corrupt and really abusive tactics that you're going to see out of the administration. So that was done on Friday, the Friday Night Massacre number 1. This is Friday Night Massacre number 2. Who did they fire? They started firing dozens of DOJ employees and FBI agents who worked on the coup d'etat, attempted coup d'etat of this country and the attempted theft of the election, the 2020 election. Why are they doing that? And why are they installing and asking Kash Patel about it? They're doing that because they want to send the signal that you don't f with the boss or his minions. Just the same reason they let all of their terrorist scum free from prison. Their pedophiles in prison that they let out. Their police beaters that they let out from prison. They did it so that there was a signal sent. You don't go after those people. Those are our people. They did it so those attackers, beaters of police officers and that they're setting free are loose on the American people. So when Trump needs them, he can push them out to attack Americans and other government officials he doesn't like. And this is similar. We're firing all of these patriots who prosecuted the degenerate scum that I just let out. So the government knows who's the boss. Don't investigate us. You're going to lose your job. Don't investigate us. Don't investigate my political opponents. Can you imagine? I don't like to dwell on this double standard stuff so much because it's a foregone conclusion. Can you imagine if Biden had done anything like this? You remember how much they cried about the IRS whistleblowers? Oh, they're being mistreated. Oh, they're being targeted because they're going after Hunter Biden. Oh, this or that. Always with horrible evidence. Always bullshit. Their framing of it. So don't believe them on that level. But can you imagine how they would roar in agony if 1% of what just occurred today, just now, hours ago, it's not even being covered by them. They don't care. It is the biggest politicization of the Department of Justice in the history of the country. In conjunction with the pardons, in conjunction with the hiring freeze, in conjunction with the IGs. I think I already said that. In conjunction with the Schedule F and all the other decisions I just talked about. It's organized methodically. It was pre-planned. This is all part of the plan. It's in the book, Project 2025. It's all happening. And remember when they told you it wasn't happening. So now who are you going to believe? You're going to believe the enlightened centrist that said, he said he's not following Project 2025. You going to believe that guy? You're going to believe the CNN reporter who tried to say, oh, Trump said this, he said he wasn't going to do this ban. He said he wasn't going to do that. He said it was only going to be nonviolent. You going to believe them? Who are you going to believe? You need to believe the people who have opened their eyes long ago and who are correct and who understand the nature of the enemy and the fact that they are the enemy. So this Friday night massacre of DOJ officials, of FBI agents, is significant. It's not going to see a lot of coverage. Trump won't be challenged on it because we're collectively slipping into a warm bath. And if we let ourselves fall asleep, we're going to drown. The rule of law has been shattered. If there is outright bribery in this administration, outright, unveiled, not even debatable, not even one of these scams where it's like, oh, we gave notice of, it's a crypto scam, rug pull type stuff. No, pure bribery. There's no way that this administration is going to be going after it. Unless they just happen not to like the person in charge and they want to get rid of him or something like that. But the goal is going to be politics. There's no even denying it, and there's no debate about it. It is wholesale corruption, and they're not even trying to defend it. The MAGA talking heads don't need to defend it. Do you notice that, by the way? Do you notice that the MAGA people that you follow, they're not feeling the need to post debunks, explanators, to defend the administration. They don't have to. Their job is done, and they are extensions of the government. So they want to be on message, and they don't care. They'll put out an attack hit or two on Democrats for sure, but they're not feeling a need or any kind of pressure to the extent they were before to like debunk stuff from the media they don't like. Let me give you an example. Another one. So the administration, and this should matter to some of you, because you've seen me interact with Lactoid. Who's seen me interact with Lactoid? Lactoid, the lawyer. Pretty sure he's a lawyer. He definitely graduated law school. Definitely knowledgeable about some aspects of some things that are legal. Though, seriously, I think deficient in that knowledge. You know, there's a CIA Lackey that's installed. This guy, do you guys know who this guy is? Ratcliffe? He's installed as CIA director, and he issues some statement to the effect of the COVID lab leak theory is now more likely than the natural origin theory. And he says that with, by his own admission, low confidence. It's a low confidence statement as opposed to a high confidence statement, right? There's already a percentage attached to it, right? So it's a low confidence about a percentage, and it's a relative percentage. So we're lowly confident that it's more likely than not a lab leak as opposed to natural occurrence. And what does Lactoid say? Trump was right. Well, then he amends it, and once he reads the article, he says he claimed he read the article the whole time, but he posted one that said Trump was right. Trump was right, by the way, in quotations. Not directly quoting what Trump said or what he was right about. And then he says, it looks like Trump was right. Well, it looks like Trump was right because what? A CIA lackey that's installed by Trump himself, when Trump has been pushing certain narratives, and certainly his followers have been pushing the lab leak narrative for forever, for the China purpose, for the political purpose, to try to spread conspiracy theories all the time. Not to say that the lab leak didn't happen, but just that it's unproven. So because he installs his own lackey, who magically on the first day he arrives and he says, oh, this is our new conclusion. Based on what? Based on new evidence? Just magically, on that day, they got the new report on the day he was installed, and they released that new finding. And so it looks like he was right. And you know what this press secretary, this Zoomer motherfucker, this traitor says? She says, it's confirmed. We were right the whole time. Based on a CIA by his own admission, low confidence. Low confidence percentage, not low confidence that it happened. Low confidence that it's more likely than not that it happened. And that's confirmed for the press secretary of the United States. And that's looks like he was right for Lactoid. Lactoid, he's not a big MAGA influencer, but just to connect it, the standard of evidence here, the need to feel like you're substantiating or defending is rock bottom. Even themselves, right? It's paper thin, these statements. Same thing with the DEI thing. It's just common sense that it was DEI. God forbid if there's actually, as there are some reports that there are, is a female, one of the people on the helicopters might have been a woman. And so I'm sure it'll be common sense that it's her fault. So the standard of proof, the need to be convincing is that it's absolute crater in terms of what's coming out of administration and its supporters. And they're being shameless and messy. And so as I stated, the best and strongest evidence points to there having been a hiring freeze at the time of the crash that affected ATC controllers. What's the evidence of this? The evidence of that was the statements made by ranking members on two key committees that relate to the FAA. They were said 7 days before the accident, a week before, not like they were going to predict it. So they knew in advance to make up a lie That's one piece of evidence. Well, two, all right, you go on to usajobs.gov, there's no postings for FAA. None. The only postings for air traffic controllers are for military. And the military is one of those non-civil parts of the government that are completely categorically not included in the hiring freeze. Or that's one of the few areas where there's just nothing, you can't even, it's not affecting them in that sense. I'm sure it'll affect them in other ways, their partners, all that other stuff, but in terms of the actual personnel, not affected. So there are ATC positions for Navy, for Air Force, for Army, that kind of stuff, right? So no listings. Okay. Some guy in my reply is like, oh, well, they only have set periods where they hire. Well, that's for like the incoming class of new recruits. They have year-round hiring on their own website, year-round hiring for experienced air traffic controllers from the military or from private practice, private experience. That's what the FAA says, year-round hiring. That's piece of evidence number two. And then if you go to the terms of the executive order that Trump gives, and this is why people think that they can try to like get me on stuff like this. Here's the difference. I do the reading, right? I go in the weeds and I find your bullshit. You have this reporter from a fake news organization. I think it's like the Washington Examiner or something like that. One of these rags, as I call them, shit rags, says, oh, there's a public safety exception. Sure, it says there's a public safety exception, but it also says in the memorandum from the OMB giving guidance on everyone to be like, wait, what the f is going on? How do we know if it's public safety, right? That's a broad term. Think about it, just in your head logically, right? This is one of those, the same thing with the Medicaid thing we talked about before. In your head logically, does it make sense that all you need to say is public safety and that's enough clarification to know which and every job is affected by the freeze or not? Of course not. Everything's going to be empty interpretation. What about an air traffic control trainee? What about an air traffic control janitor guy who's in there, right? Or I don't know. What about the assistant to the air traffic? Like, think about how many different conceivable positions there could be in the FAA or in any agency. And you say, oh, public safety, public safety. No, of course there's implementing regs or guidance or memos. And there was. And that memo says, hey, if you qualify for an exemption, you have to work it out with us, with OPM, to figure out what's the coverage there. Okay, so you can't just look and say public safety, oh, this seems like public safety, and point to it. But they don't think. They just immediately go for a fake news narrative because they're propagandists in the negative term, the negative use of that word. They're propagandists. And so they say public safety, therefore there was no freeze. No, that's not enough. That's not enough. Not nearly enough. And there's no announcement, nothing, evidence whatsoever that by the time that the crash happened, that the exemptions had been worked out with OPM. And what do we have today? Some motherfucker in my replies, because I tweeted at Elon saying this community note's wrong. Look at da-da-da-da-da-da. Some guy in my reply says, oh, no, look. They have all the postings. There are postings for ATC, for FAA. I was like, what? Oh, there are postings for FAA, which brings us to my first scoop of all time. And I don't know, you guys need to subscribe to my newsletter. Hang on, I'll show you guys. This is an article. You need to subscribe to my Substack. It's called The Weekly Patriot, all right? Sub to it, comment on it, like it, all right? This is breaking news. Why aren't you subbed? Anyway, this is the image I took the night of the crash. The night of the crash was, I think, the 29th, but it was in the morning, early morning. So this is the image I took. No results. And this is the 31st, today. 144 results, including, it's not shown here, but if you look, there's air traffic controllers now. A day later, no results. What happens in the interim? The crash, then results. And by the way, I also put a third image here that showed that the military air traffic controls were available because they were exempted explicitly. So it wasn't a problem of the search. So what do we make of that? Of my reporting? It's a cover-up. They're so stupid, they're so sloppy, they're covering themselves up. Are we meant to believe that it's just a random coincidence that the day before and the day of the airline crash, there just happened to be no FAA jobs listed? Complete coincidence. And then the day after, magically, all these jobs appear. Magically. The same reason we're meant to believe that all the Medicaid websites were down. Oh, that's just a server issue. The day after the hiring freeze, the spending freeze. Sometimes you have to like keep up all these freezes, right? Yeah, the spending freeze the day after. Just so happened that all the Medicaid websites are down and nobody can get their money. Coincidence. Coincidence that there was no listed jobs the day before and the day during the crash, but the day after there are. Real coincidence. It is absolutely ludicrous, and they're trying to gaslight you. This is the most corrupt and dangerous administration we've ever seen. And they have these little bots that are trying to do propaganda for free. For Trump, for Daddy Elon. These are the scum of the earth. Those people are the scum of the earth, and they're going to ruin this country. Elon and Trump and all his sycophants. They're trying to justify this. Hit you with that, but what about black people? But what about women? Oh, this is the funniest one, right? It was DEI policies. And we put the clocks back. And who instituted this whole we should have handicapped people, or we should have equal opportunity for people with disabilities to have jobs in the FAA. Who instituted that initially? Well, there's this big policy page on 2019 during the Trump administration. Oh, so Trump literally instituted DEI policies for literal differently abled people in 2019. So literally he did the policy that he himself is saying is a responsibility for the crash, if you were to believe him. They are shameless. You almost want to laugh your ass off. They are intrinsically liars. They are intrinsically evil. They want you hurt. They want your family hurt. They want this country ruined. Those are just facts that I point to. I point you to the fact about the different searches. Those are facts. You draw your conclusions, but I think the conclusion is pretty clear. Nothing explains this entire series of events, but consolidation of authority under Project 2025. That's what they said they were going to do. That's what they're doing. They're following it. And you can be one of these losers that closes their eyes, pretends that it's not happening. But that's not me. I'm going to continue calling out this administration for its corruption. I hope you follow me in doing so. I know it's a lot of bummer shit, but that's our job. We're born in this country. We have to defend it. So sub to the Weekly Patriot. Follow my Substack and follow my channels, and I'll take questions now.